Hello and welcome back to episode 21 of Heroic Stats, an Any Heroics podcast. My name is, of course, Stephen Denby. I am the team captain of Any Heroics, where we choose our captain according to the number of mirrors in their bedroom. I have joined, of course, by Spartan John 117.
Hello.
The Hobbit soup loving David Farmer, who's just a fluff player, really. No hello from him. And of course, the mighty, absolute legend, me. Hi, it's me again. No, it's world champion, of course, of Seventh City.
Hello.
Which is, of course, always a pleasure to have you back on. No background this time, but I'll allow it.
And we're definitely not allowed to call Will the champ because it's really cringe.
That really upset someone.
I have actually got that printed off. I'm going to get it framed in my nerd cave because it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen on the internet.
I love it. What have we been up to in the hobby this last week, everyone?
I've just been finalising bits and bobs for my tournament that I've got coming up this weekend. Last few finishing touches, none of the models that I'm using myself, just stuff I'm lending out or flogging to Captain Denby.
Yeah, well, that sounds about right. I've done fuck all because I've just moved house. Now I don't have any excuses. Deal with it.
Those rankings are going to be popping off.
Yeah, maybe I'll update the rankings tonight. Ooh. I've promised my boss that I will. So I'll probably have to do something. Will, any hobbying on your half? I know you've got quite a few preparations for this weekend coming up, haven't you?
Yeah, it's actually been a mad weekend because I was working in Comic-Con. So I was selling lots of Pokemon cards to people and didn't get much hobbying done. I am, however, having panic attacks about this weekend. Not really, of course. It's the Nations Cup coming up, isn't it, lads?
It is, yeah. Importantly, Nations Cup, we shouted out last week. We've got the badge up in there in the corner. Please go check out the Facebook group. Also, make sure you check out the Battle Camper live stream on the weekend. And if I pull my finger out of my ass, maybe some sneaky travel vlogs and things being edited. We'll see about that. But yeah, we're all traveling over to the Nations Cup. Hell yeah, with a host of wonderful sponsors. Of course, the one that we really care about is in the top left. Oh, look at that little logo. Hey, Seventh City Collectibles. Will, have you heard of Seventh City Collectibles?
Here,
would you like me to describe them for you?
Yeah. Wow. Sell me as an interested customer.
Yeah, so Seven City Collectibles is one of the largest stockists of all your hobby gaming stuff. So whether that's minis, cards, paints, sceneries, anything else. Importantly, not only do they sell first-hand goods, they also buy and sell second-hand armies. Have you got stuff gathering dust in cupboards? I know I do at my parents at home. I'm going to be taking it to Seven City Collectibles and getting a good rate on some nice store credit, which you actually get a preferential rate for. Whereas if you just sell it for cash, you don't get quite as much, which encourages you to spend more money in the hobby, which is what we're all here for.
If you use the discount code intern at Any Heroics, we'll give you free soft drinks while you're there trading in your models.
Yes, as long as you trade in more than £50 worth of stock. Will can charge that to my tab.
You bring one model. Quote the discount code. Drinks all day.
They do, of course, do fabulous food as well as it's also a good place to hang out, play games. If you're ever in the Nottingham area, go check them out. You might see this lovely gentleman.
We've ever been.
This is the most sponsored we've ever been. This is extra sponsored.
You've got to sponsor the shit out of it.
Right, Will, have you been sufficiently rimmed yet?
I'm just absolutely in awe. I had no idea that was coming, and I loved every second of it.
You're welcome.
But let's, when the Netflix bid eventually comes, you'll be ready for that meeting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a salesman at heart, apparently. The Nations Cup, we talked about it last week. we thought we'd do a kind of an extra special feature piece on it this week because obviously normally we cover tournament results. This time we're doing a little bit of a preview, partially as a hype piece because all four of us are involved in some capacity. We also have Jordan, who is playing for Team Ireland. He's not here tonight, but and we're very excited because we're taking a road trip over to Antwerp. The three of us, minus Will, obviously, plus Jordan. And it's going to be one hell of a weekend. There's festivities, drinking games, just general socialising.
It's your first like foreign team event, isn't it, Stephen?
If you don't include the La Rosière 2006 skiing championships, yes.
I don't. I never would.
Yeah, so
because John, you've done something similar before.
Yeah, I've done a few 40k ones. You've done obviously some Lord of the Rings ones, Dave.
Yeah, I've done a couple of rings. I went to Poland for a team championship as well.
What's your experience, Will, kind of playing and kind of on the organising side of other team events, international or national, and then what makes this one kind of different and special?
So the best thing about team events is obviously you go in with your buddies, and you can help each other out with your scores and your matchups, and it gives you like an extra layer of depth and complexity. And I think that's like the coolest thing about it, especially when you go to other countries and get to do it there. And so taking that mechanic a little bit further and trying to get as many people involved as possible, we've pushed it up a little bit higher. So normally it's teams of 4. And we're doing teams of 6, 3 good players, 3 evil players. So that there's going to be lots of really interesting matchups and hopefully a very tactical tournament. Because my experience, I've been to 3 ETCs and was a head ref for one last year, and sort of seeing the combinations of matches is really interesting. But I've never seen it above 4. So we just wanted to, try and lift it up a notch for Belgium. So that was the mechanic for Nations Cup.
Did you have any tester tournaments where you tried out the teams format by any chance?
Oh, did I? Yes, we did. Last December, we did the first GBHL teams of 6, and that was awesome. To be fair, it was a bit of a dry run for this before we sort of sent it live to make sure that the concept worked. Everyone had a really great time. I can't remember who won, but I think they were pretty cool dudes.
This is who won.
It was indeed.
I would say not just because we won. It's probably one of the best weekends of my life, which either says my life's really boring or it says something really good about Will's events. Because I'm a major, I will brown nose Will's events every day of the fucking week. But that weekend, there was just such a much more vested interest, which I think is what really grabs me with the teams events, is not only do you care how your team's done because they're your friends, but you care because it's affecting your standings.
They can pull you out when you fuck up.
Yeah. And if you've got a good coach, they can help you, I've played this matchup, or watch out for this, or it's great.
So the teams are kind of locked in for this event. Hopefully this is a roaring success and it goes again next year. How can people get involved either with this coming one this weekend if they're not playing, and then next year how can they get involved to try and get in as a player?
So for getting involved this year, obviously we're flying over, battle campers, crossing the gap. So we're going to have a live stream all weekend. So with games being, one game from each round for each day, and then also some sort of spot interviews of team captains and sort of things to help soak up the atmosphere, and also for the Nations Cup games, which is the sort of the social tournament after the main event. So there'll be a live stream of that. So you've got really good coverage all weekend, and we'll be doing lots of posts on our Facebook group. So make sure you join that, and that's where you'll get all of the rankings and the stats and the matchups and the real nitty gritty stuff that the camera.
I'll be able to see a live stream of Sam Grattan getting battered at chess and in an arm wrestle.
That is exactly what I'm hoping to show. Yeah, one of the main things I really wanted to push in making this event was really elevating the social side, because it's going to be a competitive event. Like, it's the best players in the world that are coming together to play, but pushing the fact that actually we're all here for the same reason. We're here to have a laugh, and we all play the same game and have the same circles. So have a proper knees up as well. I'm a rugby lad, so I've always liked the social as much as the playing, sometimes a little bit too much. But I wanted to bring that sort of atmosphere into this, which is why we've got the NC games in the evening, because we want everyone to actually come together and have a laugh, and not finish their games and then everyone go to a different restaurant. We really wanted to build that social side of things, and the teams that are coming really, really look like they've sort of got into the spirit of that.
Yeah, there's quite a few the team bios. There's quite a few really creative ones. Like, some people have made SBG profiles. Some of them have made like top Trump star things. We've got England One's bios, or sorry, just Team England rather. That isn't England One. And were written by Mr. Matthew Light Barnett, where he's kind of modified a bunch of poems to fit the character, which is really cool. So yeah, I think everyone's really getting in the spirit of having a good time. Yes, we're going to crack some skulls, and during the games it will be a fierce competition, but at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of hobby nerds coming together and having a big just get together, and someone will be crowned, but we're all going to have a great time.
That's really it. One of the we've got a huge amount of prize support for this event. We've got loads of sponsors that we're really grateful for, that are putting in a massive prize pool, and quite a lot of the prizes are actually are going to the social side of things too. So there'll be awards for the guys that win the sort of the drinking social, not just drinking, lots of skill games and stuff as well. So there's awards for them, and then there is, for me, the real winners of the event, which is, it's kind of corny, but the organizing team will pick like essentially the team of the event that sort of contributed the most, just in like their energy and their social side of things. And, the team that really, really stands out as, seeming to have the most fun there will win the sort of, the Nations Cup best team sort of thing. So there's a whole lot of reason to go, and it isn't just for trying to get the top spot, which I think is really cool.
So if you want to get involved next year and represent your country, because that's what a lot of these players are doing, how does it work? Is there a standardized process? Is there a particular person you need to reach out to for your country?
Yeah, exactly that. So the process for team selection is at the discretion of each country, because everyone's leagues work in different ways, and some might have the winner of a big tournament be the one that's picked and things like that. But every country has assigned a sort of ambassador that we've picked, because we know that they're sort of reliable and well-known people in their country for contributing to this sort of thing. And so they'll be the person that you can reach out to in your respective communities, and we'll have a sort of a directory on our Facebook page, so you know who to contact. And then, generally, if you want to get on a team, it'll be registering your interest, and playing to a good standard, and attending events and supporting your local leagues and communities, and then you're very likely to get picked for the team, especially if you're willing to travel, because it's an expensive hobby as it is, and getting a weekend like this is often quite hard to get.
So before we get to looking at some lists, shall we kind of look at the overarching stats for the event?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I just had to edit out a long boo-boo. Similar graphs were shown last week, but this is the breakdown of every single good army combination that's being taken. So overall, we have, I think it's, what's the math? 20 teams of 4 lists, so 80 different lists. The popular ones are Minas Tirith with, I think, 6 lists. Rivendell and Numenor, so Last Alliance, 6 lists. Defenders of Helm's Deep with 5 lists.
Also expected that.
Yeah. And then a huge amount of Lothlorien sprinkled in different combinations.
I think it's pretty telling that in good there isn't anything approaching the level of coverage that you had in evil. There are 18 Dragon Emperor Legendary Legions which is 9 out of every 10 groups is bringing one, and that's obviously why you can see why people would do that, because you're searching for reliability. What's more reliable than the Dragon Emperor? Even if it isn't super inspiring, you usually find at least one matchup where you think that's a good matchup for me, and that's team events for you.
There's so much less diversity in the evil lists.
It's definitely a team list thing, though, isn't it? Because for the last few years, at all of the big events and team events, there was always going to be some variant of like the Assault on Helm's Deep ballista spam. Like there was always those curveball lists in team events because they can get a matchup that they know that they can just punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they can avoid their harder counters. Exactly.
Yeah.
Good v evil does also mean that you can avoid like one of the more annoying lists for a Dragon Emperor would be a crossbow spam ballista spam list that you're talking about, and you don't have to worry about that in a good v evil team event.
Yeah, well, in theory, the game is supposed to be sort of built and balanced again, for good versus evil. But when you actually look at the charts and the win rates of the things that are winning events, it really isn't 50-50, is it?
There was when we went to the Lovely Teams event you hosted last year, we noticed that in basically every round, it was always the evil lists that were winning. And the way that you'd win any specific round is if you had one of your good lists win. That was basically it. It's like you had the super powerful evil lists. So we're talking AOL, potential barn door, maybe Angmar, Dragon Emperor, things like that. We had a Watcher, Spider Queen, Shadow Lord list, I believe.
We did. Lord.
So it was those kind of lists with these incredibly powerful tools or incredibly powerful skew lists that would just kind of absolutely obliterate as long as you protected them correctly.
An interesting thing as well. An interesting thing as well is the draft format for this tournament is slightly tweaked from the one that was hosted previously, and you actually get the choice whether you put down good or evil first. You don't have to roll for it; you get the choice, and that can actually open up quite a lot in the pairings because whichever one you're putting down first, it's giving the opponent the maximum kind of options and flexibility to play against it, but you then also lose that ability to pair it into something. So it's not quite as obvious as just somebody gets thrown under the bus. There's a lot of nuance to it, which would be really interesting.
We have affectionately referred to the lists which are kind of throw it down first as the bussy lists, because they're the ones that get bussed, and they've got great big bussies, and you bus inside those bussies. Dave's giving me an eyebrow.
That wasn't an eyebrow. That was just a look.
That we have specifically written lists for that purpose, as I think everyone has, or a lot of people have.
Yeah. This next graph is just kind of, there's one very wide graph split into two levels, and it's just breaking down the primary factions. Chris Lewis kindly did the previous stats shown, and then Matt King did these stats. You can check out Chris's painting Instagram down below. But this kind of primary faction thing, it just reconfirms what we're saying. Huge amounts of Dragon Emperor, huge amounts of AOL. But when you conglomerate all the different ally variants, Mordor's coming in strong. I think roughly, what does that look like? That looks like 30 or maybe 12 Mordor lists. So 60% of the teams.
I'm pretty surprised it's as low as that, to be honest. Mordor is like the very flexible evil list that allows everything. And
that's primary factions. That's what players self-reported as their primary faction.
Sure.
In
Mordor,
the list,
Mordor in evil comes with the most reliable troops available, like Black Numenorians, backed by
Blackguard of Barad-dûr,
is a super effective battle lion, and you can combine it with ring raids, which obviously are going to. It can go into you add in basically any side dish that you want, and that's effective dinner, as it were. You've got the.
You'd expect Serpent Horde to be doing the same.
Yeah. Serpent Horde ally well as well. They ally well with Mordor themselves. They ally well with Corsairs. I saw there were quite a few Corsair lists kicking around. A lot of nearly 60 model Corsairs plus Suladan lists.
There's a exciting Farharad related list that I saw as well.
Yeah.
Or Farharad allied in, which is quite nice.
Yeah. This is kind of the
Fighting, but it's it's good.
Final graph we'll look at, and this just shows the leaders as you expect. There's a shit ton of Dragon Emperor and a shit ton of Musga because they have to be the leaders for their respective things. A lot of Witch Kings, 14 Witch Kings, because he kind of straddles that Mordor and Angmar bridge. A lot of Galadriels. We've got 8 Galadriels, 6 Gwahirs, 5 Glorfindels, and 6 Thranduils, leading the pack for the good side.
Yeah,
Thranduil really surprises me.
It's kind of, I've seen a couple of Battle of the Five Armies, but not the Legolas instead of Thranduil. So they've got a Thranduil with some elves.
So the Europeans, because before list submission a while ago, I went through and analysed all the most recent 2 years WTC lists and the Polish lists, and the main thing that struck me about good armies taken was that the Europeans just love Battle of the Five Armies. They really seem to love that Thranduil Lake Town combo.
It comes with all the bits that you might like.
Yeah. Why do we see that so much in Europe, Dave? Why is it so good?
Well, I mean, I think it's maybe more surprising that we don't see it more in the UK, I guess, because it's just a really solid list. I mean, I used it to win one tournament with it last year. You can run, like, it has access. It's got a 3-way Green Alliance. I think the main advantage of taking Thranduil is he provides a bit of magic power, not like loads, but a little bit. Aura of Dismay is excellent, and there's not very many models in the game that get it. It's basically just him and Círdan and Radagast. And he doesn't even have to roll to cast it. He just says it's happening and it happens. He also gives him access to a bit more killing power because his the army bonus. I mean, when I did this, I ran Legolas, but obviously Legolas doesn't actually get any benefit from that army bonus. And then Thorin is great value. You can bring some dwarves along, or you can just run elves backed up by Lake Towners. I mean, that's quite popular. Thranduil, Gandalf, Lake Town Captain is solid. You get a big warband of elves with all the spell support that you need to keep them from getting shot, and then you throw some bodies down. I think the access to the 40-point captain is like one of the main advantages of that list, if I'm honest. Like, you can take the big effective heroes. Thranduil you can keep on foot, keep them tucked away inside your battle line. I think it's I just think it's really good. I think it's more surprising, rather than it's being surprising it's popular over there. I think it's more surprising that it's not popular over here.
There's the access to Bilbo as well, isn't it? You get to cheat in a pretty decent ring bearer with 3 might, and
arguably
there's a lot of value to be gained, isn't there?
Arguably the best form of the ring bearer, where he's got a lot of heroic resources at his disposal. He's got an Elven Blade, and he's got the upgraded version of the ring before it affects you.
He's nuts, isn't he?
One thing I did want to point out, and Will, at Gondolin, you failed to roll Contest of Champions when there were lots of Galadriels. I'm looking at a few Galadriels. I'm looking at a lot of Musgers. As head ref, can you comment on whether you're going to intentionally roll Contest of Champions?
It would be hilarious, but no. I'll
Can we have a live-ish reveal, exclusive scoop on what the first mission will be?
No, because we'll roll it on the day.
Yeah, that's not. That is asking a lot, John.
It wouldn't have been so much if you'd prepped that.
I tell you what, Dave Nolan would have given it to us.
That is lovely.
Right, let's not get ourselves. We can't.
Please cut that, John. Please cut that out, John.
I'm not going to do any cutting. Right, shall we have a look at some lists?
Yes, please. You were about to say. Now we've looked at the factions. I think it's important to note that this next team is the team that we all predict to do the best at the event. This is the team that's going to absolutely smash it out of the water. Obviously, they're very well known around the world.
In my completely unbiased opinion, top dogs.
Yeah, top dogs. Okay.
Top dogs.
So, of course, let's look at the lists for Team England.
Oh, I thought we were doing someone different. Never mind.
I thought we were doing Team
Whoa,
Canada
what?
and it was a bait, but
So, representing Team England, we've got Mr. Dave Farmer, Jake Rawson, Jay
Hello.
Acharya, David Clubley, Jakob Krockmal, and Ben Haslam.
I think you'll find that's actually Jakob K. Rockmal.
No, it's Jacob Crichton from Staffordshire. This is the big news is that Jakob has defected to the Western Powers. As a permanent resident in the UK, he wanted to play at the the Nations Cup, and he wasn't eligible for Polish selection because he hadn't played enough in the league. And we fortunately have no such scruples because he plays a lot in our league and he does very well. And
Yeah, he's damn good at it.
he's damn good, and he crossed the bar, and we're keeping him. So you
Yeah,
can't
it's
have balance.
interesting. Fourth down on the list, I see a man who is very appropriately fourth down on the list there, Mr. David Clubley.
That was intentional.
He has a
Is-
bit of WTC experience himself from last year,
He does.
European competition.
Yeah.
JHI likewise. Myself, obviously, I've been to 3 WTCs. I think Jake was there last year as well, and Ben is our debutant on the international stage, and we all wish
Shout
him
out
well.
season 3 of Bridgerton, which is just released. Are you
Yeah,
guys not watching it?
I got
with
that.
with the new debutants? No?
So Emily has decided that we have to wait until the whole season is out so we don't get done in by the cliffhanger.
Okay, it is a big cliffhanger. Shall we move on to the list?
You're away from it, mate.
I
Yeah,
suppose.
let's move on to the list.
So our first list from Team England is Army of Thrall. So all of these lists are 800 points. We've got 4 good and 4 evil. So Army of Thrall, 47 models. Thrall himself with 18 Grim Hammers upgraded to Guardians of the King. Captain of Erebor, 11 Warriors of Erebor with Shield and Spear. 1 Warrior of Erebor with Banner and Shield. And Thrain with 14 Warriors of Erebor with Shield and Spear. That's a shit ton of dwarfs, Dave. What was
Yeah.
the thought behind this
Where
list?
are you? So Ali, a good friend, and probably would have been on the team if he wasn't so heavily involved in organising the tournament, is a massive proponent of the dwarf spam at a team's event. You put 47. I mean, the lowest defense models here are D7. It's got a couple of lads are higher than that from Thor and Thrain. But you put that many bods on the table at D7. If your opponent was hoping on using their strength 4 to make holes in your army, it's just not going to happen. You can just absolutely deny them a massive advantage. A lot of armies really depend on their heroes to crack through the lines, usually D6. If you come into Moran and Orcs, that's just going to laugh at it. It's a really strong battle line. There's not a lot else to it. I'll give you that. There's not loads to it, but
it's the quintessential boss list, isn't it? It is the list that you need to have in your team to be your solid contingency.
Yeah.
you throw it down. A very tanky leader as well. He's D9 and has theoretically infinite fate. He's the only model in the game that could tank a theoretically infinite number of hits. Of course, what usually happens is you roll a 1 on your first fate, but yeah.
People will comment Sauron below, so I'm just going to say.
You've already said it.
This is a list which I looked at, and one of our beloved Team Lions, which is England Bin Juice, or England 2, kind of, but not really, looked at this list and was like, yeah, I can beat it in every single scenario with AOL. And I was like...
Do you know there were 3 draws?
Oh, were there? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I look at this list and I'm like, what the fuck do you do against this? Like,
you have to win scenarios and win all the priorities realistically against a list like that. Because
this is, as Will said, this is the bus list.
Yeah, it's 100% the absolute roadblock. Because the only thing that can realistically crack a list like this, and it was Ben Haslam's undoing at the GP, is the one thing that can really crack a list like this is the Riders of Theoden sort of absolute smash at strength 5 and really, really put a hole in it. And obviously at this event, you're just not going to see that. There's not really an evil list unless it's like a freak matchup with half trolls that can really crack through dwarfs as quickly as they need to.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Nothing is gonna walk through this.
Yeah, I mean that's basically the whole point of the list. I mean, this is my brainchild, inspired by something Ali's taken to WTC before, which is with the right pilot, a list like this can get good results. Because it's not
also,
the thing with the list is it's not like super scary because it doesn't have scary tricks and tools. It's just an extremely dependable battle line that you park in front of your opponent and say, "All right, what do you do with that?"
yeah, it's possibly not breaking. It's probably not giving leader kills or leader wounds. So you could either stick it down as your first list, or you could use it to just counter your opponent's nastiest list. Because
Yeah. I can't remember what Ali's record actually was, but when he was on England 1 in Poznan, he was the worst performer on the team, but I think he got 2 wins, 2 draws, and it was only because of him taking the really grim matchup that was just going to burn out against him. Everyone else was able to do as well as they did. It's such a good list to have in the team roster to bail you out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Moving
Let's
on
have
to
a look
the
at the next one.
Oh my god. Dave, you've been talking about how you've been painting a bunch of Rangers of Athelion.
It's a double
just
bluff.
Rangers.
This is their drop list.
Things.
This is a lot of bows.
Bows is it, Stephen? Have you counted them?
It's 46 bows.
It's 46 bows, 5 of which have might behind them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Rangers of Athelion. So what this is it's Faramir, Madril, Damrod, Amborn, Mablung. I see you've erroneously put Frodo, Sam, and Smeagol in Faramir's warband here.
They're a separate drop.
They're a separate warband. Yeah, and
I
then
don't
it's
get paid
41
enough to do
Rangers.
it properly.
41 Rangers, 20 of them have spear. No, 21 have spear, 13 with axe swap, and then 7 with no upgrades. This is it's an interesting list. The axe upgrades was a choice. I mean, because it's basically 2 Rangers you're dropping, but in the wide works of Jakob Krokmal, if 46 bows isn't enough, 48 bows also isn't going to be enough.
Yeah.
That's sort of splitting hairs at that point. It's the same logic with dropping the banner. Yeah, it's got a 5%
increase.
Strength 4 in it.
A 5% increase in number of shots is not gonna.
All the heroes are Strength 4, apart from Frodo and Sam. There's 13 axe rangers in there, and they're low defense anyway, so there's really no downside in piercing. This is the kind of list that if you get a 12-inch deployment against something like Goblin Town, you are just going to be racking up a comical number of kills very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Just because it's just an awful lot of bowfire. It also brings a mounted hero and the ring, which is, I mean, you could argue that Defenders of Helm's Deep is a similar kind of list, occupies a similar role, which is to say a good side list that has a heavy number of shooting. But this list, basically, the thing it has going for it is it's got bigger numbers for a start. It has significantly more bows, so it doesn't have the throwing spears, but it does have loads and loads of bows. It does have a mounted hero, and it has the ring involved as well, which
you can't discount Sam either. With the free heroic combat thing, it's a little hard to pull off, but it is something that gives you a bit of momentum in what isn't actually a combat list. It's a handy tool.
Yeah, I mean, you'll outnumber almost everything you play against, and if you don't outnumber it, you're going to shoot it to pieces. With a list like that, that's the idea anyway.
Also, looking into the obviously it's good versus evil. So in terms of the anti-shooting, there's 2 things that stop you shooting in good versus evil when you are good. It's Shadow Lord and AOL. And how this plays into AOL is very much matchup dependent with kind of player skill involved. But when you've got this many bows, if you get in that 12-inch section where you're shooting them, you are still ripping them to pieces.
Yeah, it's not really a problem at all for Rangers of Athelion.
Yeah. The thing you got to remember with AOL is they're going to have at most about 18 bows. So even if you take average damage, when you walk in, by the time you're in range to shoot back, you're still going to have 35 bows probably at least, which is going to comically outshoot the 5+ to shoot value when you've got 3+. and then you outfight them when they come to combat anyway. So it's an interesting list. They have to use their speedy bits and bobs effectively to trouble you, I think.
Yeah.
It should be fun to try playing that out, to be honest.
Moving on to the third England one
Cool.
list.
It is the list that Mr. Jake Rawson took to success at last year's finale,
Not exactly.
and also to, I think, fourth, just missing out on the podium at Gates Scotland. So he's got Thorin, King of the Mountain, 14 Iron Hills Dwarfs. Thorin has Orcus and a Wargoat. Biffa with 2 Iron Hills Dwarfs with crossbow, 3 with crossbow and spear. And then Anti-Gladys with 7 warriors with shield and spear, 2 warriors with elf bow and spear, 1 Galadrim knight with elf bow and shield, 1 Galadrim warrior with spear, shield and banner, 2 wood elf warriors with elf bow and wood elf spear, a wood elf sentinel, and 4 guard of the Galadrim court.
It's just lovely tech, isn't it? It's lovely tech.
It's just a solid list. The only thing it's missing for me is March, and March is less important when you've got very, very long games. I mean, 2.5 hours is a long game, so you can afford to be a bit slower, be a bit more methodical, conserve your might points, make sure you get Biffa up and running. Enjoy the fact that Thorin can just turret combat every time for free. I mean, that's so high value. I loved using that when I ran my Battle of the 5 Armies list. It just so much free repositioning.
It's just Battle of the 5 Armies, but slightly tuned, isn't it? It's slightly better because you've got one of the best value casters in the game, and she brings a lot of the same stuff that the Mirkwood counterpart would do anyway. It's just like little drops of tuning on an already good list, isn't it? Having a caster that helps you set up Biffa, like I'm pretty sure you did this to me last year, Farmer, and it's just like such a gimme in that you compel a Chodork or whatever forwards, you charge it with Biffa and Thorin. Thorin causes free heroic combat. Biffa gets his head off, and then they just walk back into the lines and go, "Cool, we're just set up and ready to go now." And they've had to do like no trades whatsoever. It's just chef's kiss.
Yeah, I mean that was 1,000 points, which is essentially this list plus Dane, which is a pretty nice addition. I think it was 44 models I had, but yeah, very nice list. It does all the bits effectively. Biffa is just so good. I think including Biffa makes a lot of sense. If you're running Erebor Reclaimed.
If he was 90 points, you'd still probably take him.
Yeah, 65 for Hero Fortitude that has strike and the ability to do free hero moves is just very fun. It's very, very good.
You also gently touched on it a bit, Will. The tech pieces you get from the Lothlorien army list. So you get a Galadrim Knight, which is obviously a Fleetfoot Cav, Elven Cav, absolutely gorgeous. You get 4 Fight 6 Pike / Spear supports, and you get a Wood Elf Sentinel. Just from taking this 130-point Hero of Legend, you get access to all these little, especially Fight 6 against evil lists. The majority of evil heroes are going to be Fight 5. Your Gorbags, your Silladans, your Witch Kings, things like that. They are Fight 5, and you stick a Fight 6 Pike support behind a Defense 7 Dwarf. And that Gorbag or that Silladan or whatever is trying to kill something that it wounds on 6s, and to have an advantage in the fight, it has to heroic strike with.
Yeah, I mean, it reduces a lot of your opponent's ability to chop you.
Yeah,
and even just Orcrest on Thorin is really gross. I've played 6 games against this list now. Is the last 6 games I've played. I did a practice day with one of my teammates before this weekend, and trying to charge it in Good v Evil with orcs, trying to charge Thorin just to tag him, it's just impossible. It's the terror really, really hampers you and really changes how you have to play against it to try and mitigate him.
I've often said this, but I pay 10 points just to get an Alpha Mage sword on a Fight 6 beta like Thorin. The fact that it also is hand and a half and also has all the extra bonus rules and terror against orcs, goblins and stuff is just extra beans as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. On a model that is already chronically undercosted.
Right, let's look at our final good list. It is Rivendell Numenor. We saw Mr. Jakob Krockmau take a very similar, if not the same, list to Gates of Gondolin. It's almost like a lot of players were using that as a bit of a testing ground. So this list has 36 models. It's led by Glorfindel, Lord of the West, with Asphaleth and Armour of Gondolin. Rivendell Knight with Shield, 9 High Elves with Shield, 2 High Elves with Spear and Shield, 3 High Elves with Bow and Spear. And then Círdan leads 3 High Elves with Shield, 3 with Spear and Bow. Isildur on a horse without a shield. And then a Captain of Numenor with no upgrades, leading 1 Warrior of Numenor with a banner, 6 Warriors with Spear and Shield, 4 Warriors with Spear and Bow. So we took something very similar in our England Lions, but we opted not for Glorfindel. We opted for a bit more upgrades, a couple more lads, and Eristor. What's kind of the logic with Glorfindel?
Isildur's not the leader. That's the logic. Glorfindel's a great leader, and this army has 36 models, and 35 of them are capable fighters. It's like often you'll see a list like this put up against something like say you have a Mordor Suladan list that's 46 models or something. A lot of those are going to be worthless archers. The fighting part of this army list is basically all of it. So 36 models is a little bit misleading, I would say. Like it's small, but it's like every part of it is useful. I mean, Círdan is the ultimate tech piece, really. I mean, he's got Dismay, he's got Command, he's got Blinding Light. He covers all of your weaknesses, and that means that a list like this goes extremely well into any standard evil battle line, like something with Black Numenorians and Terror backed by Morannons. This covers everything just right.
It still has 11 bows as well, so it's not really compromising anything. And in good versus evil, the magic tech reigns supreme. So having a hero like Glorfindel that is just not going to get touched is so powerful.
Yeah, both your main boys are resistant to magic or better. It's just there's a lot of good stuff going on there. You've got access to heroic resolve off of Círdan if you really want it as well. And this you have the option of playing it extremely slow. Like if you put up your Blinding Light, you can say, all right, I can maybe seed because they're long games, so you can maybe seed parts of the map you wouldn't normally want to seed and say, all right, I'm gonna shoot you just a few more times, just to soften you up just that little bit more, and then allow for the small numbers to do the job that they're supposed to do. Like this list isn't going to do fantastically into like a Giga Horde, like 110 model Goblin Town, but like that's really not what you want to use this on. You want to use this on your opponent's solid battle lines because this is a solid battle line and it has 2 even solider heroes to go with it.
Yeah.
So which one do you think's their dummy list, Stephen?
Knowing the players that are going and the lists that are being taken, I think the dwarves, in my heart, I want to say they're the dummy list, but they're such a good bussy that I don't know.
I think the dwarves are the bus.
I'm not telling you though.
Cool. Let's look at your evil lists, Dave.
Okay.
Mordor, Moria, Dark Denizens, Mirkwood. Run us through this abomination.
It's a Shadow Lord on horse, leading 12 Black Numenorians and a Morannon, just 1 with Spear and Shield. We got an Orc Captain with no gear, a Warg Rider with Throwing Spear and Shields, 4 Orc Trackers. Then we got Durbers leading 12 Goblins with Spear, a Bat Swarm, the Watcher in the Water, and a Spider Queen.
The last alliance is the dummy list. I've just worked it out.
You're a dummy list. Now, this list is extremely small, 46 models.
36.
That's what I said, yeah.
I thought you said 46, sorry.
No. It's on the screen. 36 models, a decent might. But yeah, this is definitely a scalpel list. Watcher in the Water is a phenomenal piece, absolutely fantastic at crippling opposition armies. You've got the Black Numenorians will put up a sort of some token resistance to hold up enemy battle lines while you use your nasty bits to do all the mischief that you want. Durbers is there too. A necessary tax to allow for this kind of mischief. But yeah, this is a razor thin margin list. Like there is no room for fuck ups with this. Like if the Watcher doesn't come on for 3 turns, you're in trouble.
Or
I
if the
would
Spider
say-
Queen, you get biffed early.
Yeah. I mean, I ran a list like this at 1,000 points, and that only had 40 models in it, but it did have a much harder battle line. The battle line was Morannons. It wasn't Moria goblins behind the Shadow Lord. Sorry, behind them, Brighton Mirror, doesn't run the Shadow Lord. But it is excellent at taking apart armies. Like you grab something, you destroy it. You grab something, you destroy it repeatedly until you're free enough to just start using your Watcher to pick apart enemy battle lines. Essentially, make it much weaker. You just grab their spears away, give you an advantage.
This would hate to face your dwarf list, though, I reckon.
Yeah, probably. If we were playing that matchup, we wouldn't. We would do everything we could to avoid putting this specific matchup together, because obviously they're just going to leave their heroes all the way behind the lines because the heroes don't have to contribute anything in that list at all. That's one of the strengths of the list. Because if you put the heroes at the front, they're getting grabbed and then mullered by the Spider Queen. It's just
Yeah, for sure.
just how it is.
This list might struggle into. There's quite a lot of blinding light on the good lists. We know
That's true, but you can, if you at any turn with the Watcher, if you roll four or so shots, you got the might point. So if you just roll, you can target their blinding light character if you get the opportunity, and then if you can do that, or their main hero that isn't their blinding light character, you can just grab them, roll a 5 or a 6. You can just might it up if you roll a 5, and then because the individual hits are so high value on the Spider Queen, sorry, not the Spider Queen, on the Watcher. If you pull in the one thing that you absolutely need to kill is worth the might point for sure. Obviously, like
I just love the idea that the Watcher just like swats the light out as he pops up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, Gandalf's got blinding light, grab, dead, and then all of a sudden you can go hog wild. Like it's the scalpel list of scalpel lists, and it
Seems like a bluff to me.
You might think that.
I do. Let's look at your next list. It is Assault on Lothlorien, one of Dave's favourites. It is Musgur, an Orc Captain on Warg, an Orc Shaman, Druzag, Moria Goblin Captain, Moria Goblin Shaman. There is almost every Orc just has a spear. Almost every Goblin just has a bow. There's 8 Prowlers, 3 Spiders, 1 Bat, 2 Warg Riders. 2 Bats, and an Orc Banner.
Yeah, so we've opted for a 6 hero build with no Wild Warg Chieftain. There seem to have been a few versions of this. I think it's quite hard to. If you go for the 5 heroes, you pretty much have to have 3 Orc heroes, or you have to start compromising on Prowlers. We wanted to have a healthy portion of Prowlers, a healthy bow contingent, and a healthy. I like having a married Orc Captain in this list. He just provides a lot of muscle, surprisingly large amount. If you throw in a bat swarm with him, if he outnumbers like a single target on a flank, it's like 3 attacks on the charge, knock it down. He's got the pick. He gets the +1. He's very killy, and he doesn't really, other than in Fog of War or possibly Assassination, there's no risk to using him that way. You've got your Goblin Captain for heroics and such, but this is a very reactive list.
It's why I prefer that build to the Wild Chieftain one, because the captain can actually do quite a lot and save you some points.
Also,
Yeah, and
you get the additional might. Obviously, the Wild Chieftain is limited with what its might can actually affect.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, I mean the thing with this list is it's essentially it's a shooting horde that also gets +1 to wound when you outnumber. There's like, what's not to like there? You know, you've got 3 transfixes that are deceptively reliable. You've got the enrageable spiders. You've got the bat swarms. You've got plenty of prowlers. You've got plenty of bowfire. It's a nasty list. It's a strong list.
Yeah. Let's look at your penultimate evil list. It is Host of the Dragon Emperor.
Shock, shock, horror, horror. Everyone's taking AOL on Dragon Emperor.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone for a fairly small Dragon Emperor build compared to some. We've got them because we've gone for the captain in here, and a few acolytes. This is kind of a compromised version. We had 2 versions kicking around. There's quite a few that have just run the 3 named heroes because with the drum you don't really need any more than that. And with those, you get up to sort of the higher 40s, 46, 48 models ish, even with the Dragon Emperor cost nerf. But we decided
we've got 48 in ours.
we wanted the captain because anything that can threaten it at range, the captain provides you the ability to just get right in their face extremely quickly. You can seize board position extremely effectively, and therefore, once you've seized the board position, you can then set up your massive, horrible pike block and just sit there.
You can also do this really disgusting trick where you lose priority and you just completely rearrange your entire army. You reposition entirely because you suddenly everything's moving at least 12, and you just take an entirely different section of the board and go, "Cool, I'm here now." I've moved twice as far as you.
It's nuts. I haven't looked at all the lists because we split the list check in. I'd be really interested to see how many of the Dragon Emperor lists have Dragon Knights in them, knowing that like good magic isn't like super common. I'd be quite interested to see how that ends up.
There's a couple of them kicking around. We fell on the side of absolutely not, just in case there's something like
reliability.
Yeah,
and
I think
war, because that would just be unplayable matchup at that point.
We came to a similar conclusion. Well, you say, Stephen, because it's your. Well,
it's potentially my list. It's definitely my list. We've been talking about painting it for ages.
We've been painting it.
The list is potentially our evil bus / first down list, and therefore having any discernible weakness for scenarios where it's fog of war or assassination or things like that, where you've got a hero which can just die so easily as a Dragon Knight. It feels like what our version of the list is trying to do is just do what the dwarves are doing that we saw earlier, which is not give leader VPs, not break, just take the hard matchup and just go, fuck you, this is a draw.
Yeah, no gimmicks, just pure grind. Like we've really tried to lean into the thing about Dragon Emperor that is oppressive. It's that immovable object, and that's why we went with just the pure model conversion. Let's look at. There's not much else to say about the Dragon Emperor. I feel like Golem's Game is talking about Ash's Witch King Suladan. The final list is one very close to my heart because it's very similar to one that we're taking in England Lions. It is Angmar taking the Witch King, Horse, Crown of Morgul, 3 Might, 4 Will, 3 Fate, Orc with a Banner, 1 Spectre, 8 Orc with Shield, 8 Orc with Shield and Spear, bring in the Shade, 6 Orcs with Shield, 6 Orcs with Spear, Birder, bring in 2 Deadmar Spectres, 3 Orcs with Shield, 3 Orcs with Shield and Spear, a Captain on Warg with 3 Warg Riders with Throwing Spear and Shield, and then another Captain on Warg with nothing in his warband. So I really like this list. It can struggle against Transfixers on the good side. However, I like it in teams because if they're spending their Transfixer, often that means they're taking their Blinding Light out of the equation, which can open it up for AOL. The Orc Captains, especially the way their warbands are split up, allows you to really nicely kind of almost null deploy. You put an Orc Captain on one flank, an Orc Captain on the other as your first 2 drops, and especially kind of 3 warband 40 model good armies just have to, they've committed everything by then, so you can be really, really reactive. Against non-transfixers, the Shade is just almost unplayable. It's so good. I took a similar list to Gondolin. I played Sam Grattan with Bjornings and Thranduil's Halls. So he had kind of Palace, 5/6 Palace Guard backing up Bjornings, and I just chopped through him like 5-point orcs, butchered that battle line in the Shade bubble. It was wild. I really like this list, as you can probably tell.
I would be interested to see how this list matches up into Círdan lists, because I always see that Círdan is like a hello Angmar. Courage 2, is it?
Well, Círdan,
the thing with Círdan is he can just snipe him.
Yeah,
to a certain extent, but once you've got your 2 auras up, you've then got 2 free dice to resist every turn.
Yeah,
you don't
but
give a shit.
The thing with Círdan list is Círdan is not in lists with Transfix. So what happens is they have to fight you anyway, eventually, and then they lose because you have a Shade. Like Círdan lists can't stop the Shade, generally speaking.
but you can get
And-
enough favourable fights because of the limited number of charging orcs.
Yes, you don't really mind. You just park in front and then
So
you'll
for me,
outnumber them by kind of
that
10
is honestly one of
models.
the matchups that you really want. What you really want is
Yeah.
with this is you'd love to fight something like a dwarf line. Like this list would love to fight that army of thrall list, even
Yeah,
with throwing
yeah, yeah.
axes, because you chuck two Angmar captains piercing strike into regular chuds with the shade up. They essentially become, fight 11 mighty heroes.
Yeah.
Each of them can kill 2 every turn with absolute trivial ease. Birdo just pushes through. Like, the shade just makes it unplayably bad. Obviously, you need to fish for 6s with your orcs, but, like, it's nasty.
And
It's why
what
I'm really
I found in
enjoying
my
the return of Bird. Sorry, mate. Seeing the return of Birder, because Witch King Gulliver has been popular for quite a while, and the Shade had kind of gone on hiatus. But now, because the Shade and Birder coming back in, Birder's one of my favourite models ever. A monster on that cheeky small base, getting to lots of really hairy situations. But he's only got 3 might, and he can lose a fight and go down like a chump. But having the shade, knowing that literally against anything other than heroes, you just need to roll a 5+ and win the fight, makes Birder like actually horrendous to play against.
Yeah, like that's the other thing as well. Like you say, transfix stop your shade, but like Birdo becomes a real problem if you can't.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. In good lists, we rarely see kind of double caster, so they can turn off the shade, which you're trying to avoid anyway. But if they turn off the shade, you still have Birder who's running around kind of doing his own thing. The captains, if they're going something squishy, can still be really good without the shade.
Yeah, and don't
Witch
forget
King's
the
kind of hassling what he wants to. Yeah.
So they can't just one dice and roll a 3 and expect you to not resist it.
This list isn't a huge fan of shooting, but just has to get across the board really quick.
The other nice thing about Birder is if he does get a really nicely placed hurl and then you win priority, it helps your orcs actually keep up with the shade on the kill count, because they're charging into stuff that's prone and then they'd still get a -1 to win the fight. It just means that you actually get some real legs to get the kills that you need.
One thing I remember seeing was Ryan played Angmar in the Irish WTC 2 years ago, and the first round, the first thing he did was Spectre go second. His opponent failed a bunch of charges. He just spected a Hunter Orc into the perfect position for a hurl, popped Birder out, and just chucked him straight at Azog to dismount him for after Azog charged in. And then as soon as he'd done that, he just set up it was Contest of Champions, Azog versus the Tainted. Like, you'd think that would be a bad matchup for the Tainted, but with the tech that the list provides, there was just enough bits that you could do to just ruin his day, basically.
Yeah, sure. Ryan's also been he's used Angmar for years, and he's also played a really orc captain heavy list, with the idea that they kind of just go Riders of Theoden style. You pop the shade up and 4 or 5 captains call heroic combat, and as you've said, like, they can actually just annihilate stuff. And if that first turn goes well enough, it's over.
For me, it's the access to the pick that makes it the difference, because there's no danger piercing. I mean, obviously, if you can go down like a sack of spuds if things go very badly, but like that's not what that list is about, really. It means that D7 isn't actually scaring you.
Let's quickly rattle through and look at our next team, because we're running pretty long in the tooth. This is turning into a Golems Gamers podcast. So we've got Team USA. On their team representing the States is Devon Marino, Rainier Lee, Alisha Aminov, Evan's dad, Ned Merrick, and Evan Iverson.
Sorry, that should be Evan's dad, Ned Merrick, just in case anyone was confused there. Ned Merrick is not Evan's dad.
Evan's dad is, in fact, Matthew Iverson. And apologies for playing off the name.
A couple of names we've seen before. Devon Marino should need no introduction if you are in any way involved or aware of the USA community. Alisha Aminov
community specifically.
I've seen
the USA. Yeah,
I think Alisha won or podiumed Adepticon this year.
Yes, he did. I saw his lists. It's important to point out that the USA scene is much more fractured than ours because it's a bloody enormous country, which makes sense.
Yeah.
There is more inter-scene connection than there used to be, but Devon is primarily known for being from the DC area, I believe.
Who would you back in a doubles game? Matthew Iverson and Evan Iverson, or David Clubley and his dad?
David Clubley and his dad will definitely argue, so the Iversons.
I was going to say the Iversons because there's a certain amount of, there's beef in the Clubley household.
Clubley Senior, right. Let's look at this
This
list.
is actually a pretty damn competitive team, though. I'm really excited to see how they get on this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to shout out the fact that we've got
experience.
some genuine international, not just Europe. This is like we've got multiple teams coming across the Atlantic for this, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
I hope we match up into Team USA and I get to play Evan because he absolutely trounced me last year and I need to get revenge.
I'd love to play the Americans, so it'd be good fun. So their first list is very similar to what we saw previously. Erebor, Reclaim, Lothlorien, Thorin, Biffa, Galadriel, very similar warriors, so we won't waste your time going through all of them. Notably, there's no crossbows in this list. That's the main point of difference. Only 6 bows in total.
Jake feels that if you're going to play a list with no march, you're essentially playing you have to come to me game. You've got the blinding light, so I think he has the right idea in that maxing out your shooting. Obviously, you can't move and fire crossbows, so it can be a little bit limiting, but I think you're essentially demanding that the game come to you with that list anyway. I think having the crossbows helps because crossbows, even only 5 of them, you can have a lot of turns to do the damage.
Yeah, it can add up.
Yeah,
cool. Let's rattle through. Rivendell Numenor, it's another Last Alliance. There's a trend here. We picked the teams before we checked the list similarities.
No Círdan feels like a mistake here. Big mistake. Also, shield on Isildur feels a bit unnecessary. Feels like a Boromir shield where it doesn't necessarily help him do what you need him to do.
If he's not going to be your leader, if you're running like you do and running Isildur as your leader, then you probably need him to be safe because he's already vulnerable, like a pretty vulnerable leader. Because the ring is a downside if you're playing into wraiths, or it can be used as a downside against you. What I can say about this is, Glorfindel as the leader makes loads of sense to me. I like if I was dropping one of the 4 heroes from the list we looked at from England 1, I would drop Círdan personally, but also he is an incredible piece. 43 model version of this is actually quite tough because this list has 100% fighters in it. There is no weak spot at all here, which is actually worthwhile.
Captain of Numenor on horse with a lance for 70 points.
No joke, is it? I really like the Beacon Up Alliance list. Obviously, Círdan can't be understated with the tech that he brings, but for an Aggie list that's going to just take on the best battle line that Evil has to offer, this is a really solid list.
That's basically what it's all about.
That's not the hot take we want, though. The takeaway is that we've got 2 lists that the Americans have copied from us, and they made them both worse.
From us? Sorry, you want to talk about copying lists, John?
Moving swiftly on.
Us. Minas Tirith, Dead of Dunharrow. This is one they haven't copied over, so we've got some unique stuff going on. We've got Aragorn, King Elisar on Armoured Horse, 12 Guard of the Fountain Court, Knight of Minas Tirith with Shield, Ranger of Gondor, Madril, Knight of Minas Tirith with Shield, 5 Warriors with Shield, 4 Rangers with Spear, 1 Guard of the Fountain Court with Shield, and then the King of the Dead with 10 Warriors with Shield.
This feels
I think
like
I know who's playing this, and
I love it.
Yeah.
I affectionately would call this, if I was running this list, I'd affectionately call it a load of old shit.
A for fun list.
I mean, you
I
podium 100
like
with a load of old shit just
Yeah,
last week.
this is what I'm saying. It's got play. It's not worthless, right? It's not completely worthless. I don't think this is good, but I mean, there's a lot of high defense here. What I want to know is, what's the plan? Like, what does this do other than be a D8 frontline with Terror and Raise to the Dead? Like, that's not nothing.
That is quite a lot.
It's the battle line breaker. It'll walk into whatever it has to walk into. If the opponent is like, even if he's all strength 4, he's not going to get any purchase on you. And it's just going to grind. It's just a shield wall grinder, isn't it?
That's true. Yeah, you play for a draw list, I suppose. I think.
And also, the Blades of the Dead against evil with the Harbinger from the King is not to be understated.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
this is a very theory-heavy list, and I'd be excited to see it do well.
I expect this list to be sort of. So you say it's like a battle line grinder. I think this is an inferior version of something we've seen, but there is value to it. I agree. I think for me the big thing this is missing is fight 5. Like it's got fight 4 spears, but if it had fight 5 spears somehow, like Boromir. I mean, obviously I know that that's not possible because Boromir
fight 5
and Aragorn can't go together.
But
Fight 5 is what I like.
Yeah, knowing that you're going to be wounding most of your opposition troops on like 4s at best and 3s usually, like it can be deceptively killy, I think.
Right. Let's look at their next list. It is, as mentioned before, Halls of Thranduil survives a lake town. They decided to bring Thranduil and Legolas. So Thranduil has a bow, circlet of kings, extra sword and heavy armor, leading by that's so many different individual ways of saying elves. So he's got a load of elves with a load of equipment, some palace guard, a cav and a sentinel. Leggy with elven cloak and a horse, leading a load of elves, 1 cav, and then the 40-point bargain Lake Town militia, leading some militia.
So the important thing here is this is maximum elves. That both of those warbands are full, and then they've taken also the bow on Thranduil, interestingly, because you want that dank 2+ shoot value. And then he's got 10 Lake Town militia plus the captain, so he's got maximum. He's got maximum bows in his Lake Town militia, which is correct. Yeah, you want to max out the bows in a list like this. Only thing this list is missing is something like Blinding Light, which you can't really get with this setup. I actually quite like this. I think this is Thranduil, Legolas, and a Lake Town militia captain is definitely the best way to run Halls of Thranduil. Because the Lake Town militia captain is just cheap as chips. He brings the extra bods to buff it up. It's like taking trackers in Mordor when you've got primarily black numbers and Rannans. It's like you've just got a few low defense bods to just fluff up your numbers a little bit. I mean, 46 models. This is actually pretty nasty.
17 bows. I don't like playing this.
If your opponent doesn't have serious shooting, you wouldn't like playing it, but you'd love it when you got to combat because you'd just be like lol shade. And everyone falls over. But like Legolas and Thranduil's magic and the Awe of Dismay and the Nature's Wrath, like this is a tough battle line. +1 to wound is no joke with a list like this.
Yeah. Right, let's look at some evil Americans.
Especially if they've got the odds on their side and they start going two-handed with the elves as well, which they should do if they're statistically odds on. Like elves with +2 to wound is not where any evil player wants to be.
If you ever get a chance to trap someone, that's a good chance to just kill it immediately.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. The first evil list we're coming up against is a 58 model Corsairs of Umbar Serpent Horde.
Yeah.
It's led by Dalamir with 2 Arbalestas, 4 Black Nuns, 6 Corsairs with shield and spear, 6 with shield, 2 with no extra equipment. Of course, 2 identical warbands. These are a Corsair captain with crossbow, 6 Arbalestas, 3 Corsairs with shield, 3 with shield and spear. So 2 of those warbands, and then Suladan leading 2 Serpent Riders, 3 Abercrombie Merchant Guard, the Fat Lads, 6 Haradrim Warriors with spear and bow with poison arrows, and 1 Haradrim Warrior with no extra equipment. This is quite a lot of shooting.
It's a lot of shooting. That is how many crossbows is that?
14 crossbows.
16 crossbows.
16
with the captains,
yeah, 16 crossbows, 6 bows, and then I think that's 24 throwing daggers. No, 27 if you include the heroes who all have throwing daggers. I mean, that's a nasty list. I mean, for me, the big thing here is it's 58 models. Like it goes down like hard if you beat it up in combat. Like a lot of this is only D4 or less in combat, but 58 models and backstabbers means that these guys have got some play even when you get to them.
This is kind of like the prototype assault on Lorien, isn't it? Because that many Arbalestas is like going to cripple a lot of armies. You know, I'm not doing the math hammer on it, but even like Rangers of Ithilien on a bad table for them, like could actually have a hard time against this. And then when you do, it's the same thing when you get into combat. You're not even really worse off because you've got loads of guys, you've got loads of throwing weapons. They let you make the holes to then get loads of traps, and suddenly you're just ripping people's arms off out of nowhere.
The fun never stops with a list like this because it's got play at all. This is the thing, like having play at multiple like stages of the fight. Like it's got long range, it's got short range shooting play, and then it's also got combat play as well, and it's got a big ass banner. I think Dalamir is the leader of this one, which makes sense because he's the easiest one to hide.
Sure.
It lets you be a bit more careless with Suladan, which you want to do because Suladan is a great piece. If he's not your leader, he's just really like good to throw in. I think, yeah, it's a good list.
I always find it really funny when like the bosuns are like the flavor model because they're the thing that bring the banner, and Umbar don't have banners, but they're green allies with the best banner in the game. It's like it's pretty ironic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Bosun's just there, like we say, fuck me for.
Right, let's look at the next one. It is Mordor Dark Denizens, Witch King, Horse, Crown, 3 might, 4 will, 14 will, 3 fate, leading 8 black nuns, 8 morons with shield and spear, 1 tracker, 1 orc with a banner. Shadow Lord leads 6 Moranans, 6 black nuns, 3 more trackers. Ring Wraith with 2 might and a fate, 6 orc trackers, and then from Dark Denizens, nobody else other than the Spider Queen with a Felwarg. No Batswarm, which is
mistake they've made here is no Batswarm.
Yeah, no Batswarm is a big boo boo.
Yeah, big
so
oof.
You've got triple wraiths. You don't need that many stats on your Witch King. You also don't need that many. Like you got 14 black nuns and Ranans. Like it's very easy to turn that Felwarg into a Batswarm. Like 44 models. You don't need that many. Like
just convert it.
42. Drop a stat off the Witch King. Drop a couple of one of the Black Numenorians and the Moranans down into a tracker each, and then you really want that Batswarm.
I respect the hustle on the. I respect the hustle on the triple caster. I know that's like going to be quite effective going into good, but I'm not sure it's necessary. So, like dropping that Ring Wraith into one of the bod named orc captains, you immediately get your Batswarm, and your list is better for it.
Yeah,
the Batswarm can do a lot of what you want your Ring Wraith to do anyway.
You do.
The thing with the triple wraith is it does. You can have the triple wraith and the Batswarm and 40 models. Like I've written that list a bunch of times. Like it's doable. You do have to make your Witch King a little bit more rickety, a little bit more threadbare, but it does work. And the point of the triple caster is you just have, you've got the triple compel means that any hero that doesn't have resistance to magic is getting compelled. So you force your opponent to not put any of their important heroes on the front line, because then you're like, all right, you put Bard up front, or you put Aragorn up front, or you put Thranduil up front. He's going to get a Spider Queen and a Batswarm in his face, and he's dead immediately. And then you've just lost the game.
Jacob Crockmart 2023.
Jacob has used this a bit. I've used this a bit. What I would say about this list is, in this format, the Ring Wraiths are going to run dry quick. This is one of the reasons why we didn't take it, is because if there was ever a format that you could tank, this is like a smash and grab, get your win, and then end the round after 2 hours kind of game. It's not all right, I'll play slow and wait for you to make a mistake kind of game. Like this rewards short round times. It doesn't reward very long round times. So I think we were maybe we felt like we were on the cusp of where it was actually going to work. So I'll be interested to see if this can still do the work. I mean, it's got all the tools, but it will require the pilot to be a bit more careful with exactly how much will they spend on everything.
Any predictions for the last 2 American Evil lists?
AOL Dragon Emperor.
Wrong.
Oh.
It is Azog's Legion Angmar. I love this list. I'm not sure if it's any good, but I love it.
It's red.
Azog is red allies, 44 models. Azog with white warg, heavy armor, and the stone flail. You don't see that very often. With 1 Gundabad Berserker. And then from Angmar, we've got Gullivar, 7 orcs with shields, 7 with spear, 1 with banner, shield and spear. And then 2 identical warbands of an Angmar orc captain leading 6 orcs with shields, 6 orcs with spear.
I really hope this is the dummy list.
Now this is a load of old shit.
Because Gullivar without either specters or a wraith. Oh god, I wouldn't even
compel
want to
stuff.
think about that. You,
I'd like to weigh in on this. I think that it could be the bluff list, but I also don't think it's that bad.
I
The
love
don't
it.
know.
I fucking love it.
you see some very similar lists, or at least you did, or you have historically, of players, particularly on the continent, running just like an absolute chod spam list with one or two scalpels, knowing that the game will only go on for as long as it goes on. The rounds are usually much longer in international events, language barriers and whatnot, and also what's at stake. And so, actually, something like Gulliver and Azog can just sneak in, get that, the leader wound or, that one important thing, and then the game kind of drowns out. So, in the right matchup, it actually can be quite a sort of a punky idea. I'm not saying it's amazing, but I have seen it work.
you
I'm
the
gonna
problem.
build it.
There's a fellow in Northern Ireland who runs a Red Alliance Mordor Angmar really regularly. He runs basically mostly Mordor. He just loves Gulliver. So he brings Gulliver along. And he seems to do pretty well with it. I've seen him. He's got podiums at 100 Virtual 100s with it. So, it's got some play. I'll give you that. I just think that no magic is not the way to play this list.
You're also
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But the last WTC I did was in Ireland, and I played against a German guy, and it was divide and conquer, or whatever it is. No, it's not.
Command the battlefield.
What's the one way? It's the 3 objectives, and it's corners.
Divide and conquer.
Oh, I was right. Excellent. That one. And so I had a kind of Mordor Easterlingy mid-sized army, and he had 84 models, and it was literally Angmar Orc captains, as many orcs as he could get, not even that much war gear on them, and then Gulliver. And it was just so big and so bulky that you just couldn't get it. You just couldn't get through it.
Yeah, it was 80 models. I think all of his orcs, none of them had none of them had shields. It was only it was orcs with nothing, or it was orcs with spears. Yeah. I do recall. I think he might have had Golfing Ball as one of his captains.
Yeah, possibly.
So he had exactly one bow in that list, and I remember that because that one bow moved and fired and killed my Witch King's horse on the turn when it was within Gulliver charge range, so I couldn't run away. That's burned into my memory. It's a classic.
Yeah,
classic moment.
Yeah, in a team format, it's actually quite a scary prospect.
Pick it up with fun matchups. My thing with this is 44 is not 84.
No, I completely agree. I like what they're trying to do. I don't think it will work.
Yeah. Right, let's look at their final list. It is
science.
Host of the Dragon Emperor. They've gone a similar build to what the Lions brought. Dragon Emperor, 1 cataphract with drum, 2 cataphracts, 15 black dragons with pike and shield. Ratabi, 10 Eastlings with shield, 3 Eastlings with pike and shield. Brogir, 3 Dragon Cult Acolytes, 3 warriors with bow, 3 warriors with pike and shield. It's Dragon Emperor. It's a really solid list.
Yeah,
sure is.
Cool.
Moving on.
The day will come where we have pure list diversity, but it is not this day.
Let's look at our 4 hosts' favourite lists out of the 160. We all spent hours poring over every list to pick our favourites.
Yeah.
And this is what we got to bring you.
That's
So,
what I did, sure.
Will's champion is from Germany. Run us through this one, Will. If you can read it on your phone.
I'm on my phone. I need to zoom.
Do you want to delegate?
Yeah, read that list out for me, baby.
So, Will has selected the German Misty Mountains Lothlorien Shire Yellow Alliance. Gwahir is the leader. Galadriel leads 8 Court of the Gladrim, Guard of the Gladrim Court, a Wood Elf with banner and spear, 2 Galadrim warriors with bow and spear, 3 Wood Elves with bow and spear, 1 Sentinel, 2 Galadrim warriors with spear, and a Wood Elf warrior with spear. Then he's got Meriadoc, Captain of the Shire on pony, leading 5 Battling Brandybucks, 5 Hobbit Militia, 5 Hobbit Archers. Will Whitfoot, Mayor of Hobbiton, 8 Hobbit Militia, 4 Hobbit Archers. Farmer Maggot with, of course, Grip, Fang, and Wolf, 3 Hobbit Militia, and 4 Hobbit Archers. Why did you pick this one, Will?
I just think it's dead cool. It's
like mine last weekend.
Yeah, it's janky nonsense. It's very reminiscent of like previous editions, and just earlier trends in this edition as well. It's got a little bit of everything, and it's just got some good character. If it's if it's who I think it is, I know they've actually won quite a few events with this in Germany as well. One of the chaps on my Patreon's German and has talked about this list a lot, so I assume it's a list that is seeing success in its sort of local scene. And with the good and evil, you've got a big angry monster, you've got a shitload of models. You've got 20 bows, you've got magic. Like it does have a bit of an answer to everything. It wouldn't necessarily want to face like a pretty hard hitting line, but against like a janky Mordor list that doesn't really have that many models, I think this absolutely dunks on it.
Is the patron of yours? Is it Maxwell by any chance?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. If you're listening, Maxwell, shout out. We had a nice chat the other day, and he was like, I was like, blah blah blah. And he's like, oh, by the way, do you think my English is pretty good? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, because I'm German. And I was like, oh. He was using English idioms, which was quite interesting. But yeah.
So, I mean, I ran a list like this to second place at your tournament last weekend. Well, obviously, so this is a bigger version of it. It's got more stuff in it. I think this is the kind of list that really benefits from selecting its matchups because you can avoid certain things that it hates. You're avoiding the D7 problem, which is something that I always find hobbits struggle with. Basically, the difference from Strength 2 hitting D6 to D7 is literally half the amount of wounds, and this doesn't exactly go through D6 effectively already. So I'm a bit surprised he hasn't gone for a few more Battling Brandybucks, just because I find you whack all your axe boys, just get a bunch more Strength 3 guys in, giving you the access to Strength 4 when you pierce is just so valuable. For 1 point, like I'd drop 2 guys or 1 elf or something and just bump Mary's Warband into being all the militia with Strength 3, sorry, because it's just so worth it for me.
Just for my memory, what does Will Wilford do?
Will Whitfoot is a 30-point hero of fortitude. He's 1 wound, 1 might, 1 fate. I think he's either 3 or 4 will.
He's 3 will.
3 will.
He's the banner guy.
Okay. Thanks for interrupting there, John. I wanted to flex my knowledge, but there you go.
He's the banner one.
I wanted to flex my knowledge, baby.
He spends one of his will points to be a 6-inch banner for a turn. So he's like Frodo with 9 fingers, but weaker. Interestingly, you've picked Pippin to represent this, despite him not being in the list, John.
I don't know what you're talking about, Dave.
Oh, John absolutely played him.
For the Spotify listeners, go and watch the video.
I've got to say, very big sidebar, but I recently remembered I've got the Scouring of the Shire metal set. My God, these sculpts. You can really tell that they didn't have the licensing to use their faces.
I think Frodo's all right, but the other 3 look like crap. I really, really like Sharky, though. Sharky is excellent.
Yeah, the Sharky sculpt's cool.
Sharky's dope.
One of my favourite models in the range.
As we rapidly approach the hour-and-a-half mark, shall we move on to our next favourite list?
Yeah, this is Dave's Polish Glorfindorf. Why don't you run us through it, Dave?
I like this list because it's basically, I like it because you can really obviously tell what it's supposed to do. It's like, cool. It's Kazagard backed up by Rivendell guys, no frills. He's basically not even bothered taking bows. It's literally just, you want a D7 Strength 4 frontline with auto passing courage, although it's got Círdan as well. Glorfindel to be a strong leader, and then you've got fight 5, and 2 Dwarf Kings is always a good prospect. And you plot that in front of any Black Númenorian Morannon line and say, hey, sod off, I beat you at everything. Just walk through them, basically.
Also, your Dwarf Kings...
3 fight 6 heroes as well.
Yeah, the fight 6.
Yeah, exactly. You just got a lot to go for, and there's no one part that's easy to deal with, because Glorfindel is the only obvious big target, but he's going to be safe most of the time, because having Dwarf Kings means you don't really need to risk him too much, and Dwarf Kings don't provide any benefit if you kill them, really. Like, it's like, oh, you killed one of my Dwarf Kings. Whoa. Shock.
Yeah, oh no.
I like
also,
this list because it's a really hard line. Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah. It's lean, and I like it. Stefan, you obviously had to pick a Rivendell list. You've gone for one from the Netherlands. Run us through this pure Rivendell army.
So we've got Elrond, Master of Rivendell, horse heavy armor, High Elf warrior with banner and shield, 6 High Elves with spear and shield, 6 with spear and bow, and 5 with shield. Kidden with 4 spear and shields, 2 High Elf warriors with spear and elf bow. Lindir, no upgrades on his war gear, 2 High Elf warriors with spear and shield, a High Elf warrior with elf bow, and Arwen with Asphaleth and Elven cloak with 3 Rivendell knights with shield. The reason I like this list is because it's doing something that I'd never thought of in my hundreds of hours of fantasizing about Rivendell lists. It's using Lindir on foot with no upgrades as just a 6-inch resistant to magic, give Elrond a staff of power. He's not doing it for the warband space. I don't think the list is incredibly good, but I like it. It makes me happy.
Sam Rivendell is lovely. It's nice to see. It's definitely got some flavour to it, hasn't it?
Yeah. I think 3 Rivendell Knights is probably too many. I'd probably drop 2 of them, leave it at 1, add some more models. But I feel like this person's going for, I love Elrond going splish, splash, splosh everywhere. And I'm for it.
Yeah.
It's going to suffer on the
only
might
thing
front. But
Yeah, the only thing I'd really be concerned about is the fact that it has Map All Might. But a good roll from Elrond's foresight can mitigate quite a lot of that.
yeah.
I've heard that the no equipment, no horse Lindir is actually just so you can use it as a Figwit proxy.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I like that.
Has that gone over your head?
Figwit is isn't Figwit like Elrond's cousin or something?
Comment down below if you know who Figwit is. We'll see if anybody's gone real deep in the Lord of the Rings thirst traps. My favourite list is, of course, this Isengard Mordor list, winning the Intern's Choice Award. This list isn't from Denmark because I changed my mind at the last minute. This list is actually from Belgium. I believe it's Louis van Heck's list. So it has Saruman on horse with Grima, 2 orcs with shield, 2 orcs with shield and spear, 1 Crebain for that insane mobility, and a Warg Rider with shield. Then it's got the Witch King on Fellbeast, Crown of Morgul, bunch of extra stats, 10 Black Nuns, 7 Morons with shield and spear, 1 Moron with shield, spear and banner, and a Great Beast of Gorgoroth for 38 models, 9 bows, all inside the Great Beast. You're hurling shit into the Great Beast, knocking everything else over, your Sorceress blasting. This list looks like so much fun to play, and I want to buy a Great Beast from 7th City Collectibles second-hand store when they get one in stock. And
I actually did do that. My Great Beast is from 7th City Collectibles. In fact,
Will add this to my wish list, please, alongside Big Titty Alfred.
I'll have the whole list with you by Monday.
If we were making competitive improvements to this list, which I don't think it needs any, I think it's perfect and it's going to win the whole event. A Witch King on Fellbeast with 4 extra will, so 14 total. Ooh, 2.5 hour games.
You've got Saruman to do the magic.
The thing is, the whole list is redlining anyway, isn't it? That's kind of its charm.
Like this,
it's
actually
all
like
in from the start.
This kind of list in Good v Evil, where you don't have to worry about ballistas or nothing, actually has some more play than you might think. I think it's not. This isn't the best version of this. I don't think you want. I don't think you want a Fellbeast. Sorry, but there is.
There's a lot. Cat.
There is more to this than you might think. Like Great Beasts with proper magic support are actually pretty nasty. And you just want one because you just want to deny. You just want to trundle up and down the board, deny your opponent. If they pile on you, if you go first, you run them over. If they go first, you blast them because you can blast one of the guys who charges, and you'll always be able to blast them. And the Great Beast itself will take 1 strength 3 and stay standing, and you just keep on chuntering. If you kill everybody, it's nasty.
Me and Ed Ball did something similar a few years ago. We went to a doubles tournament, and we had. In one half, it was 2 Iron Hills Chariots, one with as a captain, and the other half was Gandalf on horse, Saruman on horse, and Legolas on horse. And it was literally the same thing. Like, if you get to go first, you annihilate them, and you get to compel all of their annoying things, their speed bumps out of the way. And then if you go second, you just blast and knock everything over. It was absolutely hilarious to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually like more competitive than you might think as well. I would say.
Absolutely.
Like,
This is it's a sneaky list, I think, because people will underestimate it, and suddenly everything's dead.
It comes correct with a lot of things that you might not see, like a combo. You think, oh, that's not that all that, and then you realize actually what it does well is not something you see very often in regular tournament play, and that can be a power in itself.
Right, viewers, take a deep breath. The end is in sight. Listeners, go onto YouTube. Get over yourselves. It's everyone's favorite section. Yeah, he'll be listening to this on his way to the TNC probably. Hi, Adam. This is the round 1 draw. So, who's good at flags? I'm not.
It's France 1 versus Italy 1,
so.
England 1 versus Canada 1, USA versus Switzerland, Polish Hussars versus Ireland, the Lions versus the Grand Army, Gaul versus Denmark, can't remember, it's the
Pipeweed Smokers.
The Pipeweed Smokers versus whatever Netherlands 2 is. Apologies. Beg your pardon? Unquendor, nice. It's Germany versus Netherlands 1. It's Belgium versus No, that's not Poland. I'm really sorry. That's Lithuania? Latvia?
Austria.
Oh my god.
Austria.
I've ostracized another European nation.
Yes,
it's fine.
That's what we wanted. Denby getting hate.
It's all right. There's no
Europeans.
Bulgarians here. That's a trash nation. My girlfriend's giving me the finger. And then it's the Team Europe versus Poland, which I'm sure Team Europe will win. They won't. Poland's going to destroy them.
Are you sure that's not an upside-down Monaco flag?
Oh, it could be upside-down Monaco. Yeah.
Right.
Poland is famously the upside-down Monaco.
Shout out upside-down Monaco.
Any final comments that you want to say about the Nations Cup specifically before we answer last week's viewer questions?
I'm just super excited, to be honest. It's quite overwhelming. It's been a big project. It's been a good few years in the making, and a lot of hard work's gone into it. So to anyone that's watching this that's coming, can't wait to see you. I'm looking forward to having a beer and everyone having a good time. And to those that aren't coming this year, please just check out the page and look at the live streams and see what this community can do when everyone comes together, because it's going to be a really, really good time.
Awesome.
Probably well better be.
Let's answer some questions. Right. Bravery is a Virtue has a few questions about Aeol the Young. What points level would be best for him? Would you say pure Rohan with captains or Green Alliance with Minas Tirith, Knight of the White Tower, Kings and Men is better? 3. How many Sons of Earl are too many? Prospect getting 3 attacks on the charge with 6 inches of Earl. A possible strength 6 is just too tempting, but at 20 points each, trying to find the right balance is difficult. 4. If you could give Earl a Legendary Legion, what special rules would you like to see? Keep up the great work.
So to start from start at the top, I don't know about specific points level for Ale, but I know Ali had some success with him, or at least he had a list that worked relatively well. About 750. Ale the Young, you can have. He ran Ale. I think it was King of Men and a Knight of the White Tower, just one of them. Or it might even have been 2 Knights of the White Tower. I don't remember exactly.
It was 1 King, 2 Knights.
Yeah, because the King of Men is nice because you can mount him up, you can give him a lance. He's got fight 5. He's not terrible, and he can be your leader, which means Ale can go smashy, and then you bring sort of four Sons of Ale because it's a Green Alliance, and it means on the charge you pierce, you get strength 6, 3 attacks. You're like, what the hell? That's stronger than most heroes.
Are they fight 5 as well?
No.
They used to be. Am I going mad?
No, they didn't. They used to just have 2 attacks base all the time, which was pretty lit. But then Rohan was a lot worse back then in sort of heavy cavalry sense, so it was a bit more of a different thing. But back then, Piercing Strike could go up to strength 7 anyway, so you know. Anyway, I think for a Legendary Legion, there definitely needs to be a Legendary Legion of Ale, a king of men to represent the king of Gondor or the steward. I can't remember what it is at the time. And have that alliance that's basically already kind of works like a legendary legion because you can't ally them with anything else, and then give it some other cool rule that makes them a bit more viable, like I don't know, some sort of special shield wall thing for the Minas Tirith, or at least let Eorl be a hero of legend.
Yeah, increase him to a hero of legend, and either give him mighty hero or make it like a 3-up or a 2-up or something. Just like a slight
something to make him a bit more legendary.
I feel like the Helmsguard Legendary Legion is the legion that Eorl the Young should have got.
Yeah.
And you could definitely do some really neat things with the crossover with Minas Tirith as well, and get some like pretty Gucci combos, like the throwing spears can spare support, and maybe they get +1 to wound if they're supporting the Minas Tirith, or something flavorful like that. Could have been really cool, and it would have been a reason for people to really look at taking Kings of Men and the Knights of the White Tower, which don't really get seen as much as they perhaps should do.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of Kings of Men, but they are just going to be relegated for a long forgotten hobby project of just old statues where I'm going to kind of spray them zenithal, do a bit of dry brushing and hack some bits off. So they're all just like old statues.
Denby, you need to make a spreadsheet, and then I need to pillage your spreadsheet and see what models I want to steal.
We can discuss.
Good plan, good plan. J Max, Armies of Middle Earth, shout out. Very fun channel. Says some spicy lists I want to try now. That's, of course, in reference to last week's episode talking about what's coming up at the Nations Cup. J Max says his Riders of Airmere 800-point list. Smash them, combat with everyone with the ability up, profit. Yeah, fair. Well, if the Scottish come next year, J Mac, bring that army and profit.
Yeah, if you can do well with that, you're a better man than I.
Ted Arnold Moore says, fun fact, the most celebrated non-religious event in the world is independence from the British.
Understandably.
Makes sense.
I mean, we try to do it from Europe. The Scottish keep trying to do it from us. It's not
mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Beardy Fluffbag, friend of the channel, Chris Ryder, asks, what happened in Farmers' one loss at Gondolin, as it seemed like the game one list wasn't all that good?
It was incredible.
Oh, brutal.
I don't know if he's talking about your list, Dave, or your opponent.
No, he's presumably talking about my opponent's list, because we talked about my opponent had, I mean, to be fair, he had a 45 model Khazad-dûm list, which is kind of like it's like a flashpoint of things that my list didn't like, which is to say lots of D7. And so basically what happened in that game, I think I underestimated his dwarf archers. He had about 6 of them on one flank, and they killed 6 hobbits in 2 turns of shooting, which is pretty good returns. They were just, I should have hidden my hobbit archers that were on the flank, but basically I let myself get broken too easily. And then on an important turn when Gwaihir could have helped clear the center at Divide and Conquer, he then fluffed his lines a little bit, which, that'll happen when you rely on Gwaihir. But I hadn't got my eye in with the list yet either, to be fair.
You dusted it off. You hadn't really used it for quite a while, had you?
No, and it was a close one as well. If the final priority, I shouldn't have gotten to this position. I'd made a bunch of mistakes, but basically, if the final roll-off goes my way, I think I probably win. But because he won the final roll-off, he was able to pick all the fights in the middle, which meant he outnumbered me by 1 in the center, which is obviously unfortunate. But, like I said, that was probably what allowed me to come second, because the submarine effect was pretty real. I got some slightly easier matchups for the rest of the tournament, so we take it.
Yeah, shout out Elliot Cloud.
101 Kuji.
He was the first step on my submarine.
101 Kuji says, excellent content as always. Love that more GBHL 90/100s are adding different quirks to spice up the game. Would love to hear views on how to fix/tweak less used armies, e.g. the Rangers. So I think this kind of ties in with a question that I've been thinking. Normally our pod is kind of just focusing on the news. What would you guys prefer? Kind of, this is to my fellow co-hosts and to kind of the viewers, that we keep kind of just doing kind of factual reports, or that we kind of start exploring topics a bit more, like for example, it could be how to improve kind of some of the lesser factions.
I mean, we kind of already explore that in these kind of Q&As, like it comes up sort of in and out. I suppose we could do it in a more organized fashion. We do it fairly ad hoc at the moment.
Well, this is the first podcast episode where we haven't talked about any results from the weekend gone by. So it'll be interesting to see what people comment below.
I'd definitely be down for doing that.
Desperate to want to know.
I would theoretically. I think we already do quite a lot of that.
It doesn't have to be that topic, but just more topical stuff.
I really like this segment. I've always enjoyed this part of the video that you actually get down into it in the comments, and that gives you quite a lot of variety towards the back end of your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we really like this as well because it gives us a chance to just sort of, it can be all sorts of things where you answer questions, or you get a little bit silly with it. It's good fun.
Yeah. Well, moving on to our next comment from Claymore Links.
You're not going to answer that comment.
How to make the Rangers better?
Well, I mean,
or
how
Rangers specifically, or
well, I mean, yeah, sure. Yeah. So I don't think the Rangers are bad. I think the Rangers are actually niche and good. It's just they need to play at very large points levels. Like, that's the thing. The Rangers aren't a one-size-fits-all army, but they're the kind of army that has a lot of play at like tournaments like this where you can protect them from certain things.
Yeah.
At 800 plus, they get a lot of shooting, loads and loads of might.
There is a Rangers army that's been taken to the Nations Cup. I can't remember which team is taking it, but if you go and join the Facebook page and find the list document that's publicly available, scour through it, there is a Rangers list that somebody's taking. So, next comment, Claymore Links. Oh my goodness, for a second there, I thought the title meant there was a teaser for a Gondolin supplement, and I had to double take. Wow, that would be an amazing supplement. Think for the profiles, Gothmog, Erendel, Ecthelion. Yeah, that would be sick. Like, any kind of... it'd be interesting how they would balance kind of all the first age or second age kind of... I guess it'd be more second age stuff. You hear like the stories of, like Fëanor. How many points is Fëanor going to be? Like 500 points, and he gets the money every time.
There is actually a supplement, not supplement, like a fan made one, which is a couple of 100 pages long, which is basically Battles of the Second Age. That includes the Fall of Gondolin, and it's really good. I can't remember what it's called. I'm really sorry.
If anybody knows, I'd love to read that. If anyone knows where to find it, please let us know. Stephen, that can be your homework after you do your pairings matrix to find that supplement.
I don't know. He's got to do his rankings job first.
Yeah, you're a busy man, Stephen. Now your excuses run out.
Yeah.
David Jackson says, an idea for a strategy video. Why don't you record a game, maybe one of the Nations Cup matches, and then record thoughts over the top? Doesn't necessarily have to be one of your own games. If it's easier, then voice record over the top of another game. Deployment, rationale, setting up for future turns, etc.
Be heckling John at the Nations Cup.
Well, actually,
another blunder from Partridge here.
If you check out the live stream from Battle Camper, you will get basically this from someone commenting someone else's games. So go check that stream out.
This could, though, Dave, if you end up on stream at all, you could then download the video. I'm sure Alex wouldn't mind, and then re-upload it with your own commentary to kind of explain your thought process. That could be a really cool video. I'd watch that. I'd want to see what you're up to. If I get on stream, I'll make Dave do that to my game, and he can heckle me and point out all the mistakes I make, which would be good fun.
And if you lose, you can pretend this segment never happened.
We'll just cut it out. I'll take down the video, cut this out, re-upload it. Sorted. Our next comment is from the only JP1. Which team will win the Nations Cup? Will, who's your money on?
Oh my word. It's actually a super tricky one because, we know what teams are good, but the format's very different. There's a lot more variables with more games happening for the scores. If I had to put my money on someone, it would either be Poland or Italy. Italy have been on phenomenal form recently. They've come over to England periodically, taken away trophies. I'm pretty sure they won the ETC this year.
I think it was France.
Oh, is it France? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I
this
heard
is it,
that France aren't taking big teams to both, but I don't know how true that is.
yeah,
So that may be why.
yeah, there's so many top teams. There's so many teams that I'd like wouldn't be surprised to see on the podium, which shows how sort of competitive it's going to be. But yeah, if I had to put money on it, I'd be back in Italy or Poland myself.
I've got to back England. I think Poland have sent a very, very strong team. And I think sort of Team USA is my dark horse pick, personally.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I don't know if they're going to win, but they're definitely
one of
going
those
to.
teams.
They're definitely going to punch hard, I would say.
James Goebbels of Gollum's Gamers fame says Jordan is greater than Eminem. This is, of course, in reference to Jordan's fantastic karaoke rapping at Gates Gondolin. If you were lucky enough to experience that
Did
in
his
person,
best.
I'm not sure Jordan remembers it. Carson Howard says, question about doing commission paint jobs. I was recently offered to paint an army for someone. Basically, it's the Isengard Battle Host box set along with Lurtz and Ugluk. How much would you guys charge for this?
That is too
Stephen,
difficult
what do
of a
you think's a fair amount to
So
pay?
I've paid for a couple of commissions in my lifetime. It really depends on your painting quality and the amount of time you're going to put into it. Think of it this way: is how long is it going to take you to get the models ready and paint them and all that jazz? How many hours is that going to take you? And then apply what you think is a fair rate to that. So if you think you are an exceptionally good painter, like a Louis Van Heck level, like someone who wins Golden Demon, your rate is going to be much higher than some chud like me. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, basically,
how long
try
is a
and
piece
break
of
it into
string?
an hourly, right?
Yeah.
Try and break it into what you think it's going to take. Like, if you're a very quick painter and can get it done, and they don't care about like it's big, super fancy, then be reasonable, be fair, but also don't undersell yourself, because I think there's a sort of likelihood for people who are doing their first commission painting jobs is sort of undervaluing what their time is worth, even though someone is literally willing to pay you to paint your army for them. You know, your time is worth something there, clearly, you know.
And just like the cost of materials and stuff. Stephen doesn't know this, and we'll call it a moving in present, but I've spent money on magnetic sheets, money on magnets for the bases, money on a really useful box, extra basing sand and stuff that I bought from Seven City Collectibles.
Strength of your knives that you use to cut things with, you know.
Yeah.
Even just the paints, like the paints aren't cheap, and if you're painting other people's stuff on top of your own, if you're an active hobbyist, like believe me, you burn through paints.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of commissioning in your time, haven't you? Well,
yeah, and that's kind of my side of it is the lower side of, you know, I'm a pretty good painter. I'm not a great painter, but I've always been really good at sort of churning stuff out at a really quick rate. And so, but it literally has to come into a raw time thing, and you know how much you value your spare time. Because if you start taking on Goliath projects, you need to know that all your spare time's going to go, and that has to have a value. So for like a battle force and a couple of models, if you think you could do that pretty quickly, you know, 100 quid, 150 quid would be like a pretty good deal. But if it's going to take you weeks and it's going to be a labor of love, then it's obviously going to be way more than that. It depends what your expectations are, really, of how much do you want to make and how long is it going to take you.
And like, if the amount that you'd be happy charging is below the amount that you think it will be worth doing, then don't do it. Is my takeaway.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any amount that someone could pay me to paint a whole army, unless it was like way out of the possible conceivable value that they'd ever want to pay. Like, there's just no crossover for me. That's how I know I can never be a commission painter, because I have so little energy for painting. I don't want to kill it, you know, by doing other people's jobs for them.
It also depends on what the project actually is as well, because there's definitely ones that I've said no to in the past because I just don't want to paint those models. So like what one unit that is just absolutely blacklisted and I'll never paint for any amount of money is the Mirkwood Elves, the Finecast ones. I just absolutely hate them, and I've never, you know, I can't get a picture of them, so I would not ever paint them.
Me, Dave, if you want me to paint, all have some of those. We need to build them paint each of us.
If you want me to paint 40 Urukai, let's go. Like that's definitely doable. But yeah, as long as you're going to make enough that it's worth your time and you're happy with it, then that's it, and only you get to choose that.
Blumenkohl Broccoli 1 says, Lothlorien Hobbits Gwahir, did actually perform quite well in the last two ETC/WTs for Germany. I think in one of them it won 6 out of 6, and the other it won 4 out of 6 and had 2 draws or something. It's kind of highly rated in Germany right now, but obviously the meta is quite some different. Nobody plays Hunter Orcs, for example. As we were saying earlier, it's really interesting to see how different nations' metas form up. But it's nice to know that there's different things going on in Germany, because it is quite a cool list to see.
Yeah, a load of old shit.
Yeah, we
Load of
talked
old
about it a bit. Reestraman7812 says, great podcast, guys, as always. Thank you very much. Is getting the wooden spoon a thing in GBHL events? In my local scene, Queensland, Australia, nice to hear you listening in from the other side of the world. There's usually a trophy for last place. It's often a wooden kitchen spoon, sometimes engraved. At least for one doubles tournament, the spoon was cut in half lengthways, like Middle-earth's worst friendship bracelet. The winner's award gets a big cheer. If wooden spoons are awarded or recorded in the GBHL, it could be interesting to do a breakdown of the worst performing factions. If the stats aren't available, what faction does the team think performs most poorly in competitive play? Also, have any members of any heroics taken home the wooden spoon? Thank you, Reese, for your comment. Yes, the wooden spoon is a thing. No, I don't think it's specifically tracked. There is an award for the lowest ranked person in the GBHL at the end of the year.
It's the person who's attended at least 6 events, but ranked the lowest, I believe.
So, have any of the Any Heroics teams won a spoon?
I don't think so.
I haven't. I think I've only ever finished in the bottom half about 3 or 4 times.
Competitive legitimacy.
Actually, I want to say something about what you think the worst list is, because I don't think this is actually the worst list, but I think it's probably one of the worst lists that actually gets played a lot, and I think that's because it's got nice miniatures and it covers a certain theme. But I have to think that Kingdom of Khazad-dûm, on balance, is probably the worst performing list, just because it's a popular list among people who do not give a fuck about doing well. They just like their cool looking army with no spears. And you just pop it down and say, look, doesn't that look great? And then someone with a competitive list is like, oh, that's a nice looking list, mate, as he sort of sweeps it off the table.
Oh, Marden, is it?
Yeah, Marden. Oh, how interesting. Like, it can be played competitively, but on average, I would say it's probably down there as one of the worst lists. So if I see someone running pure Kingdom of Khazad-dûm, I think, oh, a new player, even though that's not always the case. I look at that. If I'm looking at Longshanks, I would not ever be afraid of that. Which makes my loss to it slightly ironic, but there you go.
I've never had a difficult game against Kingdom of Khazad-dûm. I always think they're very fair games.
Yeah. 2 hours, bloody hell.
Yeah, blimey.
Yeah, it's getting past my bedtime.
Yeah.
So, our final 2 questions. Oh, do we want to talk more about shit lists?
Prince V8283. Not true on the Arwen. Definitely another list where she shines beside Rivendell Knights. See you at Nations. I might have just reviewed that list. I hope I did, because that would be very, very meta of me. I haven't read these comments ahead of time. I still think she's pretty wank, but please prove me wrong. George Harold 2986. In an investigation, details matter. Reacher, great show. Recently finished S2. Not quite as good as S1, but definitely highly recommended it. In case you've forgotten by the time you read this next week, no, I remember. I said the quote, then asked viewers to comment below if they knew where it's from. Shout out, George. Glad that other people watch that show. It's a really good show. If you don't watch it on Amazon Prime, Reacher. It's based on a set of books. They did a Tom Cruise version of the films. Tom Cruise is, of course, 5'8", 5'9". Jack Reacher is 6'4" and 240 pounds. So don't really track if it's Tom Cruise. They got Alan Richardson to play it instead. Much better TV series. Go watch it.
Sponsored. Any Heroics Stats sponsored by Amazon Prime.
Yes. Is that all the comments?
That is all our comments. Once again, we are affiliated with 7th City Collectibles. Sell your models to them. They'll buy your pro painted armies. They'll buy your crap armies. Will literally buy everything. Quote the intern at Any Heroics and get free drinks. Make sure you watch the Battle Campus stream.
Yeah. Remember to comment, like, share, subscribe, support your Hobbit hobby. Remember to go to Nottingham specifically to go to 7 City Collectibles. And until next time, chitter chitter.
Chitter chitter.
Everybody.
Chitter.
Oh no, shit.
Do 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 do.